let's come back home now. Talk about ways we can develop football in Africa, particularly women's football in Africa. My guest is Aisha Johansen. She is the president of the Sierra Leone Football Association. Aisha, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Say
Thank you
you're
very
the
much.
most powerful woman in football. I received some power. Good to have you around. Aisha, tell us, how can we make football in Africa admirable?
I think football in Africa is admirable already. We have the natural talents that makes African football so admirable, and you must agree with me that when it comes to the World Cup and African Nations Cup, it's just a joy to watch the Africans playing. But I think what we do lack, we really do lack the structures, and we lack preparations, we lack discipline. And these are the things where some African countries are a lot more disciplined and advanced, and they have a better mindset than others. Certainly for Sierra Leone, we're a long way away towards getting it right, which is why we often look to the big brothers like Nigeria and Ghana for advice, for assistance. I know that very often you hear people will complain about Nigeria, the way forward, Nigerian football, Ghanaian football, but I can tell you that you are definitely the ones that inspire organizations and associations like myself. So I think it all boils down to the structures, getting the structures right and getting the discipline right.
You mentioned Nigeria. I'm particular about that one. Tell me, what's it about the leadership of the Nigerian Football Federation that makes them different, and what do you have emulation?
I think, first and foremost, I have to say that with Nigeria, Nigerians are born natural leaders. And I'm not saying this because I'm here in Nigeria and scared that, you know, I may be captured or something on my way home. You are born natural, true leaders. Nigerians and Nigeria shows leadership in many ways than one. With us in Sierra Leone, when you just look back to the war, during the Civil War, one of the most brutal wars in modern history, Nigeria took that center stage. They were there for Sierra Leone. Well before the Brits came in. They showed leadership. Now let's go back to football. What is it that makes you so admirable for us? First of all, you have, like we do, you have the raw talents. And you've been able to maximize and to utilize. You've been able to encourage your players. You've been able to make the sacrifices for your players. Now, as an outsider looking in, you may not see it that way, but I can tell you that a lot of the sacrifices that you give and you make for Nigeria and for Nigerian players, for your players, a lot of us, we don't. We haven't gotten the mindset, and certainly we don't have the resources as well. So I think that the encouragement and that determination of Nigerians, that what comes naturally for Nigerians to succeed is what it is that makes you so admirable, and that is what makes us want to follow Nigerians.
Aisha Johansen is also a member of the FIFA Women's Committee, so when she starts talking about women's football, you understand where she's coming from. She's also a committee member at FIFA Integrity and Security, and she's a CAF member for club licensing. So Aisha, quickly, let's talk about football in your country. How much damage has the outbreak of the Ebola virus done to your country?
Colossal. Huge, huge. You can't even start to quantify it. Not in terms, not financial, not mentally, not anything. It's been very damaging in terms of loss of lives, players' lives, families of players. These are boys who live only for football and earn through football and football alone. And some of these boys have had to resort to being burial workers, burying the Ebola dead in order to earn. And so you can understand the kind of risk that puts them in contact with being around burial teams. Football ceased to play in Sierra Leone, and that was brutal for them because, again, that's all they live for. And we couldn't even, the boys could not even go and watch football. You know, in Sierra Leone you have the big, massive cinema screens in the streets, and you pay your little $1 or $half $1, and you go and you watch the Premier League. And that wasn't allowed because group gatherings wasn't. So the country came really to a standstill. And for a country that's so fanatical about football like you are in Nigeria, it was a big and heavy blow, because there's one thing to have an illness, there's one thing to have economic crisis, but then even to relax, something recreational, you know, you're forbidden or you cannot do that. So a difficult time. And I'm just so thankful to God that we are getting over that time now, psychologically and every other way.
But has it affected the followership of football in your country?
Yes, it has, because we couldn't play, so it meant that the league had to stop halfway. We played for 4 months, and just midway, Ebola struck and started to creep in to the capital, and we had to stop the league, so no performance, as it were. It also meant that when we did have the African Nations qualifiers, the last one, we had a lot of problems participating, and a very, very valid reason for people to fear. Ebola was a deadly, frightening disease, and one which, you know, nobody knew about, and still we don't even know sufficient about. We now know how to avoid it and how to contain it. But when it happened, we were not allowed to play. So we had situations where we only had to play with our foreign players, and then gradually we started bringing in our home-based players. And again, like I said, it's only now that we are actually getting our acts together to embark on the qualifiers again.
And that's one reason why Sierra Leone is here in the country. We're going to Sierra Leone. We play Côte d'Ivoire in that Nations Cup qualifying game in Port Harcourt on Sunday. Yes. How optimistic are you with that one?
Well, naturally, I'd have to say I'm very optimistic, and I am, because football being what it is,
you played the champions of Africa.
But we've played them before, and we gave them a tough time, and they actually remembered that encounter. They really do. I've spoken to Kolo Touré, and he remembers the players, and he remembers the team, and he actually tweeted and he talked about that match. How confident? I would like to say that our players are in top form, but clearly they're not. They could be better. But the good thing is that their minds are in a better place, and they're looking forward to it. And they're up against the challenges. So, yes, I'm optimistic.
Particularly, they can actually use football to actually defeat Ebola, because they can bring the country together again.
But of course, and we actually did that. Even when Ebola was at its peak, I initiated the 11 Against Ebola campaign with FIFA, where Ronaldo, Xavi, Messi, everybody came. I'm sure you've seen that. Together we can beat Ebola. That was off the back of...
CAF did great with it, with the campaigns during the qualifiers.
They did all of that. And even in Sierra Leone, we were given a little bit of money, $50,000, which is probably not a lot of money, but FIFA gave that to us, and we gave it to UNICEF, and UNICEF now used it as a sensitization campaign for the market women for cleanliness and sanitation. So, yeah, football is just massive when it comes to being a tool to heal, to bridge gaps, everything. So with Ebola, I know that football will be used to bring that healing.
It's just you and Lydia Nsekera, the Burundi president of Football Association, that are women in international football. Now,
small correction. Lydia is now an executive committee member. She was. And so it's myself and Sonia of a tiny island. I always forget the name of the island. Gosh, she'll not forgive me for this. But yes, it's in the South American islands. Okay. Small. It's me and her, two of us.
Now, let's talk about developing women's football in Africa. Yes, a lot of times people say it cannot get the sort of attention that we give to men's football. But what you've seen with women's football in Africa, I'm sure you know it can be better.
Massive, huge potential. At the Women's World Cup Symposium in Canada, just 2 days before the finals, I actually gave a speech. It was an initiative called Power Play. And Power Play is an initiative giving African women and young girls a voice through football. Again, at the Women's World Cup, we saw the performance of the African teams.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I think it's about time we stop being token numbers or token teams.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just have some African teams in. Let's have the odd 2. Let's have the odd 3.
Yeah.
But they won't get very far. And it isn't right, you know, because the talent is there. But again, back to what we're saying, it's the preparation, it's the structures. You know, they don't play as a team. They're not prepared, even though you have some very, very good talents. So what we are advocating for now is that we pour in CAF, all the African nations come together and see how best we can build women's football in every sector now. We're talking about not just kicking the ball on the pitch. What about the education?
Yeah.
What about the referees? What about the coaches? What about the administrators?
Training.
What about those in medical? Every single sector that goes to build up empowering women in the game, teach us everything that can empower the growth and also make women wants to enjoy being part of football and not just see it as, oh, this is just a men's game. You know, I don't know. I don't play football. I own a football club, a Premier League club that started from just a humanitarian venture. Yes, a 12-year-old venture, and they're now in the Premier. I don't play football. I am now the president of the Football Association. I'm an administrator. Okay, so there are lots of things that we can do for women to empower them. And again, I will say that Nigeria is going to be a big force behind this transformation and initiative because we will launch it here.
I totally agree. I'll just read this message on Twitter from Cousin Kalani. He says, I think the way Aisha is thinking is the way football leaders all over the world should think in emulating countries stronger than us right here in Africa. So, Aisha, a quick message to every aspiring football administrator, particularly women.
I think that there is no longer a time where you have the placard, please don't enter, men only. We don't have that anymore. I think that for every woman, if you believe, you should try to achieve. I don't think there is anything now as a man's role. Football is there for everybody to enjoy, and I think women make great administrators, and we could do the world of football a lot of good.
I must say thank you so much, Aisha, for coming on the show, and I'm glad she's the most powerful woman in football. She didn't take over my seat to anchor the show. Thank you so much. That's it, Aisha Johansen. She is the president of Sierra Leone Football Association, and she said so much about developing football in Africa, particularly women's football. I also wish Sierra Leone all the best as they take on Cote d'Ivoire.
Thank you very much. May I also just say, and I'd like to extend a very special thanks to the Nigerian Football Federation, and particularly to President Pinnick for allowing us to come to play here at our home match in a neutral venue, and a neutral venue that we Sierra Leoneans consider to be our home. Thank you so very much. Thank you to Nigeria.
We appreciate your appreciation, and it's actually the first time Nigeria will be hosting an international game as this. So that's the show, but remember, you can keep talking to us on Twitter, we're channels_sports, and on Facebook, we're channels-sports. On behalf of the ever-winning sports team at Channels TV Sports Center in Lagos, Nigeria, I'm Austin Okonakpa, and Aisha has just, re-emphasized the power of using football for national unity. That's more than enough reason for you to keep talking sports. Bye for now.